Welcome back to organisms. For this next activity, we're going to be talking about adaptations, camouflage specifically. I've got my camouflage pants on today, so you can, reach your inner Miss Frizzle, and wear something special for the activity that day when you have that lesson as well. Camouflage is something that students are going to be familiar with already, so they've got background knowledge, and they love this activity. So for missing moths, what you're going to do at the beginning of class is, of course, you can discuss maybe you've already talked about camouflage, or you've talked about adaptations already. By the way, there's a really good Ames booklet, foldable, about a specific type of moth that over the last 200 years has had to adapt and change its color. I found it very interesting even to read over this booklet. So these moths 200 years ago were all light colored. Their environment changed for many reasons, and they became dark. After maybe 150, closer to the 200-year mark, the environment was changing again. So now those moths are losing their dark colors and becoming light again. So I think that's really fascinating for kids. They don't just change and always stay that particular color or pattern. They can continue to adapt. So what you want to do is you're going to have this made ahead of time. To make this, all you need are 2 identical pieces of newspaper. So if maybe your school library gets the newspaper like ours does, and they pile up in corners like ours does, grab 2 copies of the same newspaper and just pull. I've got the page I have has some current events on one side and comics, because I thought that'd be fun, on the other side. You do want to check the content in your newspaper clipping before you post that, especially in our day and age, before you make your example out of it. So you're going to have 2 identical sheets. That's really important because, as you'll see in a minute, there are camouflage moths on this newspaper. You're going to also have 3 colors of construction paper. You're going to have white, green, and brown. And those are, great colors to use for this activity because they're natural colors. We don't have like purple and hot pink and things like that. So white, green, and brown. A couple moths just sporadically placed. So I'm sure you can see the white ones. It's probably the easiest for you to see even from the screen. They're the brown moths. You see a couple of those. And the green might be blending in a little bit better on the screen, but for kids, they're going to see those pretty easily from the classroom. What you don't see is that there are hidden moths also on this newspaper because they're made from the second sheet that's identical to it. So I'll show you those in a minute, but first, your kids aren't going to see them, and you don't want them to know that they're there either. That's part of the activity. So you're going to hang this. Maybe you have one of those old maps still that rolls down on your board, or you can just put something over it, or even fold it up before the activity you're going to do later in the day. So the kids are going to come up. They're going to have a recording sheet that looks like this, missing moths. They're going to come up. Maybe they've got a clipboard or they're working with a partner. I'd say 5 to 6 feet away from the board. Maybe your room has a straight line of tile or carpet where they can all sort of line up across. You want to give each kid the opportunity. If you've got 20, 25 kids, you don't want to just have the kids in the front with the best view. So maybe call them up by table. There's nothing wrong with that too. Or all the girls come up, all the boys come up, whatever. Let everybody take a good close look. And they're just simply going to write down what they see. The types of moths. So by type here would be the color. Probably like you, they're only going to see 3 types of moths. They're going to see the white, the green, and the brown. Beside that, they're going to record the actual number of moths. We'll get to that in a minute. And then they're going to count the total. How many do they see? They see 4, 5, 6, 7 moths. And then again, we'll do the actual afterwards. And I know Grace mentioned this, but there's nothing wrong with having your estimate not match the actual, and it drives kids crazy. There are a lot of times in science where I don't let them use a pencil with an eraser for that reason. We get out the felt tip markers, the pens, that teachers keep in their desk, or we use those charcoal pencils that don't have the erasers on them, because mistakes are fine. That's part of science, it's part of life. They don't need to try to change their answers. So they're going to record that. Once everybody's had a chance to come and look, and they've said that there's 3 types of moths, I'll tell them that no, there are in fact 4 types of moths, and I'll show it to you now. I'll bring it up a little closer. Although even if I bring it close, it's really hard to see. So I'm going to hold this for a second. If you look, I'm going to peel up the corner right there. Do you see that moth right there? So it's like a window advertisement for blinds or shades. And because I cut it out perfectly from that second copy of this paper and taped it exactly where it came from, it totally blends in. You can't see it at all. Now, you don't have to make them all that difficult to find. Even if I had turned it a little bit, they still wouldn't see it at first. So that's always interesting to do too. So there are actually 4 types of moths, and there are 4 of those camouflaged moths. There's one over here in the funnies, one down here, and one over here in the text. I think it was in the print, actually. So you've got 4 different camouflage moths, and that just blows their minds. It's so cool. Even after all the years of using this, it takes me like 5 minutes to go find all my moths from before. Once you've collected your data, and you've discussed that there are the camouflage moths as well, they're going to go back and do some graphing. That data and measurement piece is so important for us. They're able to make a bar graph out of the white, the blue, the brown, not blue, green, and the camouflaged. All right? Now for the part that they really, really enjoy. Once you've done your big project here, you're going to give each student a white moth. Go ahead and have these cut out ahead of time because it's really not easy to cut every little piece of that neatly. The kids have a hard time, with scissors. I don't know why 4th graders have a hard time with scissors these days, but they do. So cardstock works really well, but it's not necessary to have cardstock, or even white construction paper, or just plain computer paper is fine too. So you're going to get 1 moth each. You're going to let them look around your classroom environment, or maybe you're in the science lab. And you're going to maybe you're home and do an e-learning. They could do this at home even, and hide a moth in their bedroom or their kitchen where they're working. So they're going to pick a place. Let's say I were to pick this whiteboard. I'm going to try to make my moth blend into this environment. Well, that'd be really easy to do because I would just leave him totally white, except for the black surroundings on the outline. But maybe it's a more difficult, place. Maybe you want to have on the counter a black tray. They're going to have to color that moth black, even with a little bit of a texture to help blend in. Or maybe your bookshelf. Or maybe you want to find a poster in the room and let the kids try to make their moth blend into that poster. They would have to be so exact about the shapes and the colors, even the letters and the words. Now what you don't want them to do is to go over to the poster and copy it right there looking at it, because then everybody in the class is going to know what they're doing, because each student's going to be doing this. Thank you. Each student will be doing their own moth. So they really need to be seated at their table or desk with something in mind. Maybe there's a box over in the corner that has a 3, 2, 5 on it. Well, I'm going to make my moth 3, 2, 5. I'm going to keep it to myself. I don't want to go over and look too closely because I don't want other people to see where I'm going to place my moth later. After they've had time to make their moths, you're going to let everyone hide their moths. Now, they can't do this while the students are all in the room, because then you know exactly where Tony put his moth, you know exactly where Tracy put hers. You're going to need to make it so that kids go in one at a time. There are different ways to do this. You can have them all go out in the hallway as you let one at a time to go hide their moths. Or maybe you're at lunch if your school has a really tight schedule and you don't have time to do that. Have them put their moth in their pocket, go to lunch, they're seated, they're eating, and you escort one kid at a time back to the classroom to hide their moth that way. That way you're not losing or feel like you're losing instructional time hiding moths. After all the moths are hidden, maybe it's after lunch or recess, if you still have your same group of kids, they're going to come back and try to find, you've got 20 kids in the classroom, there's 20 moths now hidden around your room that they need to go find. It's just so much fun. The kids really enjoy it. They're moths that some of the kids even forget where they put them. They blend in so well. You don't want to have them put them under like tables, of course, or anything like that. So make sure you tell them it needs to be visible, but camouflaged. I hope you enjoy missing moths as much as we do.